Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar. Let's just give a couple more minutes as people start joining. Ophir, any World Cup predictions? Who's your team this year?
I don't know, right? We have a lot of surprises in this World Cup, right?
It's been interesting. I think it's the expanded field. Uh,
I think it's a magnificent time to be a New Yorker and specifically living in a tri-state area, right?
yeah, with the Knicks and the World Cup, it's definitely been an exciting time here in the city.
Wow. I can only imagine.
I think we'll give people a few more seconds to join, but I think while we're waiting, can just give a quick introduction. For those who don't already know us, Darrow is an AI lab for legal risk. And we research how legal exposure forms, spreads, and gets discovered before it escalates. I think in particular for a lot of the audience joining today, right, it's detecting opportunities early, giving them the chance to evaluate their merits and manage their entire docket like a portfolio with the new platform that we've launched.
Yep.
All right, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I know World Cup's going on, so we really appreciate you guys taking the time to join today. I think we can go ahead and introduce ourselves and then go ahead and jump into building a predictable and reliable case pipeline. My name is Sean. After law school, I've sort of worked across the legal ecosystem, started off at Citibank, and most recently was doing business development at Cravath. So very excited to be here at Darrow, finally working on the right side of the V. Here at Darrow, I'm on the solutions team, so we develop bespoke partnerships and just try and find different areas where we can really help our partners and find ways where we can add value using technology, in a variety of different ways. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Ophir.
Thanks, Sean. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us in this webinar. My name is Ophir. I am a legal intelligence group leader at Darrow. What we do is I basically lead a few teams within legal domains where we find these exposures using intelligence technology. We have cyber analysts and intelligence analysts and legal professionals. We all come together to find legal exposure within different legal domains, and we surface them. And then we can actually find these opportunities that can help you create the case pipeline that Sean mentioned. Personally, my background is legal, but in a very, very short stand, basically. I'm a legal professional, finished law school, practiced corporate law for a short period of time, then moved to the financial sector. So I'm an investment banker that I did a lot of corporate deals for 3 years, then moved to the fintech space and underwriting space, where I spent most of my career. Later on, I did my MBA at MIT in the States, and only recently, actually, joined Darrow here to lead the legal intelligence sector within specifically the consumer domains and mass tort.
Thanks, Ophir, and appreciate you taking the time to join today. So I think we can go ahead and get started, right? I think first off, it's just like the challenge that we constantly hear from our partners is that the case pipeline is unpredictable, right? Like it's interesting coming from big law into the plaintiff side, right? Where in big law, you sort of have this client roster and like your top 10 or 50 or whatever many clients it is. And it's this repeatable business, right? Your Fortune 500 companies are going to get sued. They're going to have mergers and acquisitions, right? And so there's this sort of repeatable pipeline of business, which is completely different on the plaintiff side, right? Especially in class actions, right? There's no repeatable, you don't have a repeatable client, right? That's just someone with bad luck, essentially, right? Like they're buying products that are advertised on fake sales, or their privacy is being, they're being tracked by cookies, right? Hospital websites. So there's all of these different causes of action. And it's not like a repeat business in terms of the traditional law firm.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely agree. I think that when in our days, we definitely need to look at these pipeline of opportunities more structurally, right? Like definitely, I agree with what you just said. Like the way it's all structured, it's not like firms can just wait and like find the next opportunity or just depend on luck, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we hear from our clients a lot of times the biggest sources of new cases is uh, just someone reaches out to them is like, hey, is this this is what's happening to me. Do I have a case? Or um, their local counsel and another firm brings them in because of their expertise, right? But it's like this is a very reactive method of generating business, right? Like at the end of the day, a law firm is still a business, right? I think a lot of us went to law school to try and help people, and that is definitely an aspect of it. But at the end of the day, it is like running a business, right? You have overhead costs, you have things that you have to pay for every month, and not knowing when your next settlement or how long your case is going to take, or where your next case is even coming from is a real challenge. And I think an area where Darrow is really able to help.
Yeah. And you know, coming in from the financial sector and stepping into sort of like a legal intelligence or legal funding sector now, I see so much resemblance with the way these firms actually need to manage their portfolio or case pipeline, as we call it. Basically, just like early stage investments, right? Like you're managing risk. You're taking decisions based on not a whole set of information. So, and I think this is like the challenge that Dero really helps govern like for these firms.
Yeah, and not only that, right? Like you're dealing with the law, which is like almost like a living, breathing organism, right? There's regulatory changes. I think we saw this last year with SIPA. Like they're trying to lobby to make changes there. Then there's judicial decisions, right, where a ruling might go against your case, and then you sort of have to evaluate, is it worth pushing this forward, right? And so it's constantly changing. And so this idea of all of your cases are like a pipeline, like a portfolio, right? Is really important because to your point, right? Like an investment portfolio, managing your risk, right? I think I always like to almost think about it and like the target date funds, right? And for your 401k, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're retiring next year, you're going to have a much more just risk adverse
Mm-hmm.
investment strategy versus like, hey, I'm going to retire in 30 years. I'm willing to take a little bit more risk. I'm willing to take some chances for that upside.
Exactly.
So I think it's
And
interesting.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, I said that I exactly, and I definitely agree with you. I think that also, like, looking at the financial sector and the amount of assets and type of assets like these firms encounter, like only in the plaintiff side, you have so many domains, short duration, high duration. Like, you need to take all these calls that I'm not sure. In fact, I'm sure a lot of firms are not thinking of because like the way these like assets pipeline is actually managed today a lot is by gut feeling or hunch or experience, while there's such a large set of data that we see every day. And this is why I think this is a super important topic for every firm that is actually within the class action sector or generally.
No, absolutely. And that's a really good point, right? A lot of this is gut feeling. And you ask even some of our partners, I'll ask like, what do you think this would settle for? And it's, well, we did a case that was similar. It settled for this. We think this case is a little bit better, so it'll settle for this, right? And there are
Hmm.
so many data points out there with all of the settlements that are publicly available. And I think that's a good segue. Maybe we talk about sort of what a high quality case pipeline looks like. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Ophir, of like what are some considerations that you think are important when trying to create a high quality case pipeline.
Yeah, so I think what we need to think in risk assessment generally is what's the cost of a bad case for us specifically. And when we think of that sense of like we're taking a decision that is based on risk assessment and whether we want to take more risk or less risk, like the example you mentioned on your 401k, then we need to actually take some measures that are very similar to the financial sector, asset management even, and just like, you know, just take these examples and think of what is reasonable to think of when I'm looking at my case pipeline, right? For example, diversification. We all the time say like I'm sure our clients or generally the listeners here, they think of like I don't want to put my eggs in one basket. Diversification is the ultimate tool within the financial sector. Why? Because it's magic. It takes high returns assets that are usually more volatile. If you combine them together, you combine them and you see higher returns, expected returns, with actually less volatility or less risk. Because with the diversification, you hedge yourself. This is a free hedging. And I think this is one of the most important measures firms should look at when they're constructing any pipeline of cases or any pipeline of risk assessment decision making. What do you think?
No, absolutely. I think that diversification is huge. And I also think, right, there's also some economies of scale with respect to sort of having a specialty and finding a way to scale that, right? I was talking with a partner yesterday, and they mentioned they like the hospital wiretap cases because they've already done a bunch of them. And so they have the templates for the complaints, for the opposition briefs, right? And so and they also mentioned if we lose, we're probably going to lose early. So we don't have
Mhm.
to devote as much resources, right? It's not going to drag on.
Yeah,
So being able to find something that is repeatable and scalable is super important in addition to the diversification, right? Because if you decide to go all in and then, like we mentioned earlier, right, there's some regulatory changes or some bad law comes down, you're sort of stuck with all of these cases. But it is nice. I recommend like finding these economies of scale across different practice areas and different causes of action to sort of, to your point earlier, like hedge against some of these things that are coming down.
yeah. And what I actually want to double click on one of the measurements you mentioned, and I see it very resemblance to duration, right? Duration within finance, or in our firm we call it time to settle, basically measured. And for me, this is a key part because you as a firm, you also need to manage your cash flows, right? You have associates, you have other partners, you have back office. You need to make sure you have the right cash flow to run your firm. And we see also the litigation funding sector as a complementary industry to help these firms actually run cash flow um, better. But if we use the data, if we combine cases that are, let's say, higher duration with higher settlements, expected settlements according to previous data or historical data, and we combine them with short duration cases that are more predictable, like the one you mentioned, or I don't know, the consumer cases are more like that. Small privacy cases are more like that. You have statutory damages sometimes, so you know what you're gonna get and when, and that way you can actually kind of build like a pro forma, like a
Yeah.
model.
No, absolutely, right? I feel like we've really hit the board all across the different sports analogies, right? But it's like you need some singles and doubles, right? Like again, this is a business and you need to keep the lights on. And so like every case can't be a grand slam that takes 5 to 10 years, right? And I think so all of that goes into essentially all we have all of this data that goes into our underwriting, right? So we look
Mhm.
at the things like who the defendant is, right? Like I think without naming any names, no free ads, right? There are some defendants that are just pretty litigious and are going to fight everything tooth and nail.
Yeah.
And they're not going to settle quickly. And so taking that into account, taking into the revenue of the defendant and if there's collectability. And so there's hundreds of data points that go into our underwriting, um, along with like the time to settle. And so how we end up at our estimated settlement and estimated attorney fees. Right? I think we've kind of been broaching the subject a little bit, but there's so much data out there, right? And legal seems to be one of these spaces where it's kind of a black box. And I think what we've been doing a really good job of is sort of like shining a light on the data and giving our partners this information when they're evaluating a case, right? Because
Hmm.
it is so challenging and there are so many unknowns. And to a certain extent, every case is, I don't want to say a gamble, but there's some risk associated with it, right? Because of all the things we mentioned earlier, the regulatory landscape, judicial decisions, even cases that are slam dunks in people's minds, there's a possibility of losing.
Hmm.
And so there is so much more information out there. And I think we do a really good job of presenting that in addition to the cases we produce.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Sean. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. Um, Give me a genre.
Well, I'm just gonna go out and say it. My favorite movie is Moneyball, and this will be the
Okay.
last sports resemblance here or example. But my favorite scene from the movie is where Brad Pitt is actually, he's the GM of the Oakland A's, and he has a bunch of scouts, right? And he asks scouts like, what do you like a certain player? Or I think it was the draft. I don't really remember, but what do you like about a certain player? And they said you just hear the ball pops out of the bat, right? Now, then he goes out to Jonah Hill and says, yeah, he's hitting like he doesn't make runs, all right? Doesn't make any runs, he doesn't make any points, but he tries to make home runs, and that way that's how he loses. For me, this is the best example for how Darrell's data can really like open a window of like a different outlook on a case pipeline or a portfolio.
We want to get you
Think,
on base.
yeah,
Right? That was the whole thing is
yeah.
he gets on base.
He gets on base. Yeah, sometimes you need cases that gets you on base, right? Pays for the lights to be on.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go for the home runs.
No, absolutely. Ophir, I know you lead the consumer team, so I would love to hear just sort of like how we're finding cases at scale, right? Because I think that's one of the big challenges that firms are facing is one, finding cases and then finding cases that they can bring at scale, right? And volume and sort of those economies of scale we mentioned earlier.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think that well, we are being proactive. One of the let's say key aspects that I think in this space that the ones who would really do it or be mindful about it will win is just be proactive versus reactive to what is going on. And this is what that was doing for all these years. We're upstreaming all the opportunities. And what we have is basically creating within a certain domain, in my case, it's consumer specifically, a lot of intelligence tools that creates cases by scale or finding violations at scale. These, for example, let's take deceptive pricing, which is one of the causes of action we work on. And deceptive pricing, we are actually measuring a lot of sites, and we actually see if they are violating or not through our technology. And when we are offering that, we are offering to firms that actually practice this space, and they can choose because we actually hand to them all the data we gather, like on the violation, on the duration, expected settlements, or like how much money and when like they are expected to actually see from this in risk adjusted, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this is risky decision or risk mitigated decision. So we are really trying to be mindful of that. And while we're creating these, because we have these economy of scale that the technology enables us to do, then we actually just put on the table for these firms all these opportunities that just bring them closer to the decision. Let's say you're not when you use our platform, you're not taking an early stage investment decision per se. You're closer because you have more data. You're closer to the decision, and that way you're reducing the probability or the risk.
No, absolutely. And Ophir is being very modest. We track hundreds of websites and over 500,000 products every day on the false reference pricing cause of
Mhm.
action. Um, so I think that's a sort of a good segue into sort of what a partnership looks like at Darrow, right? Like it's this repeatable pipeline of cases. And I will say like every partnership is very bespoke. And so we hear sort of what causes of action you're interested in, where there might be some overlap with the cases we're producing. And we're able to produce these cases at scale. And so you have this repeatable, predictable pipeline of cases and cases that you're interested in.
Yeah, and we are at all the, let's say, class action sectors that we can find within technology at scale. Like if it's something that we can find at scale and provide to our clients, we're there, right? Like ERISA claims, obviously ECPAs and privacy, which is our largest sector. We have even within consumer food mislabeling. When we see an opportunity, then we double down on that. And we absolutely love working with our partners. We love working with you guys, who the solutions team who actually um, gets us the opportunity to work with our partners. And generally, we feel like we have a real opportunity here to show firms how to manage their pipeline and how to be more proactive about like managing pipelines and think of it.
Absolutely. And just because we didn't say some sort of cause of action you're interested in, please still reach out. I think we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to expand. We recently have produced pay for delay cases, right? And so we're constantly evaluating new areas of law and would be more than happy to chat with you guys. All right, Ophir, thank you so much for your time. It looks like we have a few questions. How about I
Mhm.
read this one out? It
Yeah.
says, what metrics or indicators do you think are most useful for evaluating the overall health of the litigation pipeline?
You want to go first?
Sure. I think some of the metrics that we have briefly touched on are pretty important, right? So expected duration, right? Again, to like the resourcing elements and how much time, really what you're putting in and then on the back end, right? What you think the expected settlement, what the expected like attorney's fees are going to be, what's the percentage of the recovery that's most common for that cause of action. Um, I think those are a good starting point, and I think those are, again, when we produce a case, we provide our partners with that information. So it's they're making the case on one, the merits of the case and whether they think it's a good case, and two, sort of financial implications for the firm and taking it, and then anticipated recoveries on once it's sort of reached a resolution.
Yeah. Definitely, I agree. I agree with every word you just mentioned. I think in diversification, right, where we talked about we have so much to go into deeper, which we would love to do with our partners. But you can go into regulatory statutes, jurisdictions, like where you're actually getting in the case. So it makes a difference if it's really early investment and you have this much of cost to bear throughout the process, or you're actually joining like a co-counsel within part of the process. It's a big case. There are a lot of nuances there, and we have all the data to actually help you take that decision.
Awesome. Thanks, Ophir. This question is, how do you balance sort of the grand slams, right, while maintaining the diversification, right? Like, is there some sort of strategy there, you think?
Hmm. Well, for me, as someone who deals with data and legal data for all this time here, it's just be mindful and proactive with the data. I think the Moneyball example is perfect for this instance because like you have to look at the data and look to see what you have around you basically around this decision, what makes a good decision, what makes a bad decision, and every decision a firm is taking about taking a case or not, you have all these other firms who actually took that decision and failed or succeeded. And if you're not taking a look at what's the historical data around this decision specifically, then I think this is like my best recommendation. Just balance that, balance your gut feeling and your hunch with what you see over in the data world.
No, absolutely. And I know we struggle with that, right? Like the heart wants what the heart wants. I think especially in the some of these big cases where it's just so egregious, right? The violation, you're like, let's get them. But at the end of the day, you are a business. I think I'm facing the same thing with the U.S. and the World Cup, right? The heart's saying we're going to win it all, but the head, it's going to take a little bit more time to convince me of that. So I
Well,
think it's something we all struggle with, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I see that also throughout, you know, and during the day to day also, like taking decisions just it's not an easy task. Basically also even more when you have employees, you have associates, you have back office to pay for, and you need to pay for the process. It's not easy, and this is why we're here also to help.
Absolutely. Um, well, again, thank you everyone for joining. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day. We know there's World Cup is on and lots of other fun things to do out there. So thank you so much. Hope you found it interesting. If you have any questions or want to talk with us, please reach out. You can reach out to contact@darrow.ai, or you can reach out to one of us directly. My email is sean.mccallister@darrow.ai. And Ophir, what's yours?
Mine is a bit harder. My my email is Ophir, Ophir dot Samuelov, Samuelov @darrow dot AI.
Thanks again for joining. Really appreciate it. Take care, everyone.